Hey there, fourth graders. I hope things are going well. I really miss having you in class, and that's the truth, but that's kind of the way the world is working right now. So at least we can still interact online with Canvas. We're talking about question and answer relationships, meaning that there's four different types of questions. So the questions that we've been working on the last 2 days is on Tuesday, we did questions that are right there, questions that you can find directly in the text. And then we've also looked at think and search questions yesterday, which think and search questions are ones that take a little bit of, you kind of have to kind of use information across different pages to sort of piece it together to find the answer. Sometimes the lines between these different categories can be really blurry. And so it's not so much, does it fit in each category exactly? It's more so, can we recognize that different types of questions are asking us the reader to do different types of things? And that's kind of what we're wanting to tap with this. First off, I want to review yesterday's questions that we talked about. So we did, I asked you two questions of why Chloe ran away from home. And then I also asked her, why did Myrtle have to ride in a different train car? If this video didn't work for you yesterday morning, it will work now, so you can go back and watch it. So let's answer these two questions. Why did Chloe run away from home? This is not an answer that's given directly in one spot in the text. We kind of have to make a few different inferences of what's going on. We know that Chloe was very dissatisfied with living at home, that her and her parents argued a lot. We know that she didn't really want to live that kind of traditional life or traditional role of what she would have lived if she would have stayed in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania. We know that she wanted freedom. We know that she used the money from her inheritance and bought the wrong thing. Instead of buying a wooden chest, she went and bought a car. And so we can make the inference that she ran away from home because kind of for two reasons. She wanted to go out and do big, important things in the world, like be a nurse and help support women's suffrage. And also that she just couldn't see herself living, at home kind of with that traditional lifestyle any longer. And the second one, why did Myrtle have to ride in a different train car? That one's a think and search as well, because it gets close to kind of saying it at one specific spot, but you kind of have to piece different things together across a few different pages. So Myrtle had to ride in a different train car because she was black. That's why. In Washington, D.C., it was legal to have black people and white people in the same train car. But as the train was leaving Washington, D.C., they were going to pass into Virginia, which was the South. And so once it passed into Virginia, the law changed. And that's why she had to go ride in a different train car. And it never really says that at one spot in the text. You kind of have to piece different things together, and she had to go ride. And it wasn't just in a different train car. It was a train car where only, the black people were sitting, and it was, uncomfortable, and they didn't, not well taken care of, and that sort of thing. I'm very excited to look at some of the questions that you all wrote for your think and search questions. And I was really, really proud with what I saw. I thought you guys did a great job with this. How would you describe Mrs. Merganser? That's a great one where you kind of have to, piece together a few different things where we have, there's several pages that talk about Mrs. Merganser to really describe her, not just her physical appearance, but who she is going to take a synthesis across those different pages. I thought that was an awesome, awesome one. What did Mr. Martin do when they said Myrtle had to sit in the colored car? This one might be more of a right there question because Mr. Martin really just protests with the conductor, and we can find that directly in the text. So Vera, I think that's a great question to ask and an important question. I would probably classify that though as a right there question. This was a great question, Casey. Why did Mrs. Merganser not know how old she is? This is something that happens a ton in the Hope Chest. Is the Hope Chest kind of dangles little tidbits, but never really explains them very well, and it leaves us to kind of figure it out. Mrs. Merganser doesn't know how old she is because she was born a slave. And with slaves, they didn't keep track of birthdays or birth dates or age or anything like that. And so she must be old because, slavery was abolished in 1865 or 1863, 1862. And, she was already born, she said, a long time before, they were free. So she's at least, 80 years old is kind of what we're thinking. But that's why she doesn't know how old she is because she doesn't know when she was born because she was born a slave. Kylie is asking kind of a great, and this is more, this is partly, it could be a think and search one because there's different details that are found in the book, but that's also the one that we'll get to tomorrow, which is On My Own Connect, which is where there's not really an answer in the text. We kind of have to know the larger world issues that are going on to understand why there were black people that, that were discriminated against in the 1920s and before that. So that's a really, really important question to ask, Kylie. Lexi, I think this is a great one. Compare Chloe and Myrtle. How are they alike? How are they different? If we were in class, we actually do an activity where we talk about that because they are alike in some ways. They both want adventure. They both don't really have much for them at home right now. But they're also different, in fact, their skin color, but also Myrtle is very much street smart and Chloe, oh, sorry, is this Chloe or Violet that you wanted to compare? Sorry, I was thinking Violet in my head, so I'll just keep comparing it with Violet. But Violet is very, kind of prim and proper. Myrtle is more street smart. So there's some differences there. Sorry your video isn't working, Corver and Emma and Ian. You guys can go back and watch that now. Compare Violet and Chloe. That was an excellent one, Bowen. How would you think Chloe and Violet are alike according to what we know about her? That's awesome. That's a great one where we kind of have to go across different pages to see how Chloe and Violet are alike. I think they're both alike in that they kind of have this free spirit where they want to go out and see and experience the world. Emma, this is a great one. Compare how Violet and Chloe are alike and different. Why did Myrtle leave her training institute with Violet? Clara, I think that's a great one. We know Myrtle left the she just on a whim. Myrtle was just out like going for a walk one evening. We're not quite sure what she was doing, but she just was hanging out, having a normal day, and then all of a sudden she just on a whim, goes to Washington D.C. and then now to Tennessee with Myrtle. And so we have to kind of make some guesses from the text, from several different pages. But we know that her parents died, that the women at church sent her to the Girls Training Institute to teach her to become a maid, and we know that she didn't really like the Girls Training Institute, and she didn't really want to become a maid. And so, going on this grand adventure or staying and going to school, it's not even a school, she's going to take the grand adventure. That's a great question. Millie, this is an awesome question. Compare how Chloe and Violet are. Are they really different or are they really alike? And, we could do that because in some ways, Violet and Chloe are very, very similar. But in other ways, they are different, Violet is a bit more conservative or not quite as bold as Chloe, might be. Violet still really respects her parents. But they do have some similarities and differences. That's awesome. How'd you describe Mrs. Merganser? Kale, that's an awesome one. Why did Mrs. Renwick not get a candy? That's a clear back from chapter 2, and that's a good point, Kenley. Why didn't Mrs. Renwick get a candy? Why did she just give a candy to Violet? And this one might be more of a author and you one, where you kind of have to get into the author's brain and ask, why would the author have Mrs. Renwick give Violet a piece of candy but not keep one for herself? And so this one doesn't necessarily have answers across pages of the text, but it's more, what's the author thinking when they wrote it this way? And that's what we're going to get into today. Why did Violet's mom keep her letters from her? Sierra, that is an awesome one. It never really directly answers that. But, we know that the parents didn't really approve of Chloe. And we know that Chloe's letters were telling Violet about all these awesome things that she was doing. And so maybe one reason that Violet's mom kept the letters from her was because she didn't want Violet to turn out like Chloe and to get Chloe's ideas might be a reason. And they also thought that maybe if Violet thought that Chloe had abandoned her, she might not, look up to her anymore and want to be like her. And so, Sierra, that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking that. That one could maybe be in the author and you category because you kind of have to get into the author's head. But I think there's, sometimes that line is kind of blurry. But either way, that's a fantastic question, Sierra. Why can't Myrtle open the train doors easily? One of the videos, I think it's today or maybe tomorrow's video, talks about the vestibule where, that sometimes they're probably just old and jammed doors. And remember, Myrtle's like a young kid, she's like seven or 8, so, I think of a little girl trying to open these big heavy doors. We could see why This one I don't think really gets answered in the text, so that might be more of an author and you question, because it never really gives us a definitive answer, even across different pages, of why. We know that there's multiple doors she has a hard time opening, but doesn't tell us why. What other reasons made Chloe run away? Ian, I think that's a fantastic question. And even by the end of the book, we could answer that. We could have an ideas for that answer now, but even by the end of the book, we're going to have even more information about it. And so this is an excellent example of a think and search question, because the answer is kind of built up over multiple parts of the book. Addie, why did they have to pay more for Myrtle? Addie, I'd probably classify that as a right there in the text one, because it is found right there in the text. They had to pay more for Myrtle because they got a discount because they were riding as the whole suffragists. They rented a whole train car, so they got a discount. But then now that Myrtle had to change cars, they had to pay for her. And so that would be a think and search, or sorry, not think and search, or right there, because it does kind of give that answer right in the text. But I think that's a great question to ask, Addie, and I think it kind of points out sort of the unfair system, that was apparent. Tag, yeah, thanks for these answers right here. Tag saying that she packed some of her clothes and then she took a train, and then that she had to ride in a different car. So Tag, thank you for providing your thoughts there. And Bennett, yeah, thanks for answering your questions to go find Chloe. And because Sally, that was the law. Both of you boys, those are excellent answers to the question. Compare Violet and Chloe, whether they're alike or not. Excellent, McKenna. And then Ben, why did Mrs. McGanser not know how old she is? So really, overall, just fantastic job with asking those think and search questions. And sort of our key thinking with think and search questions is you're going to have to look at things over multiple pages in the text to find it. Here's this page right here. So think and search means that we have to go and skim and reread parts of the text. We're going to look for important information to solve these problems, and then we have to piece together different parts from the text to answer those questions. So we'll kind of push pause on think and search, and we'll come back to it next week. But now let's talk about author and you questions. So author and you questions. Oh, sorry. So when we've talked about the 4 types of questions, but today I kind of want to bring in this idea of there's kind of like 2 groups here. So the main thing, the first group is a question where the answer is in the book. And it's straight in the text, and you can find it in the text, either in one specific spot, like a right there question, or over parts of the text, like a think and search question. The other type is in your head questions, which are, oops, sorry, not right there, and darn it, author and you, and then on my own. Sometimes copy and paste just is not your friend. So then there's in your head questions, which are the author and you and on my own. So kind of the first thing whenever you're asked a question is ask yourself, is this an answer I can find in the book, or is this one that I can find in my head? And a lot of them, are both. Like, even if you're finding it in your book, you're still going to have to use your head. And even if it's in your head, you're still going to have to use the book. But this is kind of just like the primary way. Mostly the book with a little bit of brain, or mostly your brain with a little bit of book. And so that's authoring you and on my own. So let's talk about authoring you questions. In an authoring you question, the answer is not in the text. Readers, they have to use their own ideas and experiences to answer the question. I actually think that's the wrong one too. Mr. Downs. All right. It's this guy over here. That's tomorrow. On my own's the tomorrow one. Author and me. The answer is not in the text. To answer the question, readers need to think about how the text and what they already know fit together. So with this one, you're trying to get into the author's brain to understand why they said something the way they did. So you have to think about how the text and what you know and what's in the text fit together. With this one, it's a good idea to reread sections of the text to sort of figure out what's going on in it. And then you have to think about what you already know and what the text says. And a lot of times you're having to make predictions. So many times with authoring you questions, there's not one specific answer. With these in the book questions, there generally is. With right there questions especially, and then with think and search, sometimes there's a little bit of latitude there, but these ones, there's generally a right answer. On the in your head questions, we want to provide our reasoning and support that reasoning with evidence from the text, but generally there's more than one right answer. So example questions that are author and you questions could be, why did the author? Do you agree with? Why did the main character? What did they mean by? How did she, he feel one? Give the reasons why. What do you think? What if? What do you think will happen? What did the author mean by? And what did the character learn about? Those are some ideas of what could be an author and you question. And again, some of those could be think and search depending on the specific type. But, mainly an author and you, it's the answer is not in the text. It takes a lot of work on your end to sort of craft an answer and then justify your thinking. So let's talk about some possible author and you questions from the lovely book of Harry Potter. Why did the author include Harry catching the Remembrall that Malfoy threw? So let's think about this. Not every single day in Harry Potter is covered. They skip lots of days. And we know that Malfoy is just kind of a meanie every day. Like, he's kind of just picking on Harry. He picks on Neville a lot. He just is kind of mean. So why did not J.R. Tolkien, that's Lord of the Rings. Why did J.K. Rowling decide to include this little scene where Malfoy steals the ball from Neville and then ends up throwing it, and then Harry has to go in a straight dive and catches it right as Professor McGonagall walks up? Well, I think the answer to that is actually in yesterday and today's reading. So here we have Harry, and he's trying to catch this little golden snitch right here. Now, a Remembrall and a golden snitch, they're basically like the same size and shape, right? And so if Professor McGonagall walks and sees Harry catch this very small thing in a straight dive, similar to the way a golden snitch would need to be caught, then that could be a great reason to include that in the book so that Harry can get on the Quidditch team. Because remember, first years aren't supposed to be on the Quidditch team. And so J.K. Rowling had to kind of figure out a way that Harry would be able to demonstrate or prove himself that he's so good on a broomstick and catching a small ball that he needs to be on the Quidditch team. And so that's just my thoughts. I think it's a pretty solid answer because I grounded it in evidence from the text. But there's no answer in the text. This part is not answered, but we do know that the result of that is Harry getting on the Quidditch team. The next one is, do you think the Gringotts break-in has anything to do with Hogwarts? Why or why not? Now, it's interesting that, that first off, that Harry was even, just that even gets mentioned, right? That we know that Harry went with Hagrid to Gringotts, but, Harry didn't have to find out ever that Gringotts was broken into right afterward. And so I would kind of think that, if something big like that, or that's kind of a sideshow, wouldn't be brought up unless it has something very important to do with the plot line. Because, they're at Hogwarts now. Gringotts is, way back in Diagon Alley. There's not really any connection between the two, but yet, it was brought up on the train that Gringotts was broken into. And then one of the days when they're having breakfast, there's a newspaper article, they're at Hagrid's cabin, and there's a newspaper article that talks about Gringotts getting broken into. And then even into next week when we read, we're going to find out some other things that help us, kind of make that Gringotts Bank and Hogwarts connection. So yes, I do think it does, because I don't think the author would just bring up a thing like that, an important event like that, but then not have it be part of the bigger story down the road. So those are some example of Harry Potter author and you questions. Just remember, an author and you question, there's generally not a right specific answer. It's more, you trying to get into the mind of the author and then make some, reasonings of what potential answers could be. So thank you so much for watching. We'll do the same thing where there's 2 questions below. You can answer those 2 questions below that are author and you questions from the Hope Chest, and then you can provide your own author and you question that other students can answer if they would like. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.